I hope that my slides work. So they don't. Okay. This is not what we're supposed to be seeing. Yeah, that's better. But now I can't see my notes. Yes. Okay, that's better. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the lovely introduction. And we had some technical issues, but I hope they're solved right now. I'm very excited to be here in Helsinki in front of this full room of people. And I'll introduce myself shortly. I'm Marie, I'm a UX designer, researcher, and I work at a company in Amsterdam. They're called Ank Inc. And they make websites, or we make websites and applications for non-profit organizations and organizations that have an impact on society. So I'm a designer and researcher, and I also focus on web accessibility. And as you see, I'm signing, I'm deaf, and that's why I make use of the services of sign language interpreters, in this case, into spoken English. And I want to activate you a little bit this morning, and I'm going to teach you a sign. I have a remote here. Let's see if it works. No. What should I? Okay, there we go. Maybe the remote is slow or it doesn't work. Anyway, I'm going to teach you a sign, which is this one. Okay. I know it's very exciting. You might get nervous to start signing, but let's do it together. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, this is not what we... Yes, okay. So I want to start by telling you a story. When I worked at a previous company, I used to go there by train every day, and I had a prescription for the train, so I had a pass, and I wanted to ask something, to have it changed. And it's it's the Dutch railway, so they had a Dutch website, and I sent them an email, and then I had to wait for a really long time. So I thought I'll call them. That might be a bit easier. And I think the remote is slow. Okay. So there is an app via phone, so we can call to a company that provides the video relay service, and they then call to the company. So I thought, let's do that. It makes for direct contact. But there was an issue. So the person on the other side of the line, the Dutch railway services, they said, before we start, you need to give permission because of the GDPR. So I said, that's okay, here is my permission. And I signed yes. Interpreter interpreted that and said yes. But the person on the line said, no, you have to say it yourself. And I was like, but I just did, yes. So I said it again, yes. No, said the person, you have to say it yourself. And I was like, so it took us a little while, and then the interpreter said to me, they want to hear your voice. And I was, okay, and so then I said yes, and I said yes with my voice, and then like this was a very strange conversation. So why is my yes, my signed yes, not the same as a spoken yes? This is strange to me. I have to point this somewhere, I suppose. I'm not sure where. Okay. The Dutch railways have now made it better. They have now taken responsibility to be accessible. So on their website, in the green square, they have now the option that if you're deaf or hard of hearing, you can call them via this interpreting service. If I click on that, this is the screen I get. And this is obviously Dutch. It gives you two options. One is calling via NGT, Dutch Sign Language, or via text, which is also via an interpreting service. But I was thinking, why can't we just use the chat? Why do we have to make use of this particular service? And I'm going to tell you in my talk today why it's important to have contact options. But before I do that, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what it's like to be deaf. So you may have wondered about that. So there are two perspectives, lowercase deaf, uppercase deaf. Lowercase is used for, well, to give a description of people who are medically deaf. So they have an issue with their hearing. There's an audiological condition there. The uppercase deaf is people that have a strong identity linked to their deafness, and that's a different way of perceiving deaf people. Yeah. So I have two hands, I need my two hands to sign, so it's a bit of a struggle to work with the remote. So many deaf people have this deaf identity, and connected to that is the language that they use, which are sign languages. And sign languages are not simple gestural codes based on pantomime or on a spoken language. They are full languages in their own right, and they're visual spatial languages. And they don't have a written form. And they are very different from spoken languages, but at the same time, they also have grammar, and they use facial expressions, not in Finland, but mostly they do. They use facial expressions, or maybe less so in Finland, to give emphasis, for example, and to convey meaning. And many people ask this question. Sign language is universal, right? It's not. Every country has their own sign language. So there is Finnish sign language, there is Dutch sign language. There are many different sign languages. And even within countries, there are dialects. I'm very confident saying that in Helsinki, there's probably a very different variation there's a variation in Helsinki, which is different from what deaf people in the north use. Many deaf people have a sign language as their native language, which is the sign language of their country, but that means that the dominant dominant language of their country, the spoken language, is their second language. So when deaf people read, you can compare them to second language readers, which means it's a different language to them. It's a second language to them, and that's just what it is. It's nothing more, nothing less. But it poses problems, obviously, because the dominant language of your country is not your first language. And then the thing is, we need not physical adaptations, but we need cultural, linguistic adaptations. So we fall between the the hearing community and the disabled community. The adaptations that we need are based on our culture and our language rather than a physical state. Many people say, okay, so we have written content on our website, so that's accessible because deaf people can read it, that's fine. But as I just said, that's not the case. So, for example, British Sign Language is not the same as written English. They have separate grammars, and they're not the same. So, just to give you a couple of examples, the top sentence is like proper English, right? Would you like to go to have lunch with me? And then the second line is the construction you would make in a sign language. I want to emphasize that this doesn't mean that the grammar is simplified. That's not the case. It's just different. It's different, like English and Finnish have different grammars, or French and whatever language you can think of. So just to give you an idea that we're talking about deaf people speaking a different language. And what's important is to identify the problem in order to recognize exclusion, but there is no one-size-fits-all solution. There are so many different forms and people within the deaf community. Some people sign really well, others can read and write very well, others don't. It's a very heterogeneous community. So I will give you a couple of tips that you can use when you design for the web. And then writing for the web, very important. And these are a couple of tips that I will give you. And if you use these, you will improve readability for deaf people, but also for lots of other people who can benefit from this as well. Like, for example, there has been research that said that 1 in 6 Dutch adults have difficulty in reading, writing, calculating. So I would say that that would be similar across countries. There are people that for who the formal education system doesn't fit, people have with dyslexia, or they have learning problems that have not been identified, for example. So there are people that they don't have the ability to read that well. But for deaf people, that's even higher. So there's been a research from that into that as well. And what that said is that deaf people have issues of difficulty with understanding and interpreting implicit meaning in text. So just to keep in mind, this is when people read a second language, right? Which is difficult. There has been research in other countries, for example, in the UK, that said that deaf children, when they're about 16 years of age, they have a reading level of 9 years, at the age of 9. So I will give you some tips to improve readability for your online content. So what you can do is use headings and subheadings, make 1 point per paragraph, use short sentences, 7 to 10 words per line, that's better for all of us. Bullet points, bulleted lists. And use easy and accessible language whenever possible. Why would you make it difficult? Just keep it simple. Write in a journalistic style, make your point first and then explain it. Oh, I've gone back. Okay. I'll go again. So, easy, accessible language whenever possible, journalistic style. So make your points and then explain it. Write in an active form. And avoid difficult words, unnecessary jargon and slang. Use diagrams, pictures, images, multimedia translations of the content. Chunk the content. Use white space. And the last point is important. Use a glossary for specific terminology. That can be very helpful if it's about insurances or elections, for example. That's very helpful. And then we get to another good solution, is subtitles. So there's a difference between subtitles and closed captioning. So subtitles are used for translation between 2 languages, right? So it's dialogues of 2 people that are being translated. So you look at a French film and you have English subtitles, and the subtitles only convey what's been spoken. Closed captions are used to also convey surrounding sounds like door slamming or all those kinds of sounds, which are very helpful and very nice to have. But as I said, for many people, this is still difficult. It's not their native language, it's their second language, and subtitles change very fast, so it's not easily understandable still. I mean, I like reading, so for me it's easy enough. I like watching films with subtitles or closed captions, but it's still a second language for many people. So language jokes, synonyms, or wordplay are difficult because it's another language. I mean, you may have experienced that when you read another language where you don't get those nuances always. So that's what it's like. And also, to add to that, sign languages don't have a written form, as I said, so that is also difficult. But it doesn't mean don't use subtitles or closed captions. No, there's a lot of people that benefit from it. And even not only deaf people, but I mean, many clips online are now being captions. And it's good. So here are a couple of advantages for captions. They're more accessible because if you're in the train and you forgot your headphones, you can still watch a clip. And it boosts your SEO, but you have to put it in separately, so don't burn it into the video, because then it's not being recognized. And then this is not necessary. So the goal of the purpose of subtitling is to give content, right? So this is not content. And it's also not meant to give an estimate or a judgment of your viewer's language capabilities. There we go.
Another solution that you could resort to is a lot of people think that, oh, transcripts were nice. We will add it to a video or a podcast. Sure, it's a nice solution. And it's also great for your SEO. But, oh man, it's such a long line of texts. I don't like that. Nobody really likes reading through that. Like, spoken language is different than a written body of text. So it's not always suitable to display on text. And all these words, all these tiny spoken language features cannot be taken from this text. So the best solution would be the following. Multimedia solutions are actually always the best idea. So translate the content into sign languages. So, and it's important to have the translation made by a native signer because they can really provide simultaneous accessibility for deaf people or for deaf visitors. And this is a good solution for websites that have a lot of information, that are very information dense, so medical or things centered around the elections. That's really, a lot of people benefit from that. For me, I'm too impatient, really. I really don't want to watch the whole video for one thing of information. I prefer reading, but the community is very diverse, so there are a lot of people that do benefit from it. But mind you, if the content changes, like even in one tiny bit, you have to re-record the whole video. So it's time-consuming and also expensive. So let's get a little bit more abstract here. 27% of the EU population has some disability in one form or another. So we're talking about over 100 million people here. So if you're designing a website, this is your potential audience. And about 71% of the users with a disability click away directly from your website once it's not accessible. And this research has been done in the UK, and they have 12 billion pounds of purchasing power. So that's 10% of the total purchasing power in the UK that's lost then if they click away. And starting from next year, 2025, I made a typo in my slides. It should be EAA, not EEA, but the European Disability Act is about to be released. Accessibility Act is about to be released and will be enforced in the EU. And its goal is that people with disabilities, any disabilities really, must be able to shop somewhere, or so use the economic websites. Whether it's just a website or a web shop, they have to follow the WCAG standard. So the what? The WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. WCAG for short. And there's this one paragraph 2.2 AA, that's where they have to, that's the standard that they have to adhere to. And the EAA can be divided into two parts. One centers around services and the other around products. I will give you a list. So these are the products to be considered. If your website sells any of these, it should adhere to the standard. And then there's services as well. All of these have to adhere to the WCAG 2.2 AA standard. Let me zoom into this e-commerce. I mean, this is a very broad thing. For example, you can think of news websites, sales of products and services, any platform with advertisements, professional service provision, so lawyers, doctors, anything. Also entertainment and media services fall under this, and telecommunication services as well. But there's one exception, don't sweat. If your company gains under 2 million euro revenue per year, or if there's less than 10 people working for the company, you don't have to follow this standard. So there are some sanctions, but it's not really clear yet what the form of these sanctions will be or what will happen if your website's not up to standard. So it's starting next year, but that's still unclear. And for public services, people have started to work on accessibility there much earlier. In 2016, a directive was published, and all public services, starting from back in the days 2018, would also already have to follow the WCAG standard. Are you starting to get nervous yet? No? No worries, because I will give you some tips if you don't follow the standard yet. So improving accessibility, much of course relies on the code and on developer side, but of course you can already start with cultural adaptations and other adaptations web-based. So are you ready for 2025? Here are some ideas. First of all, it would be great to create an accessibility statement in which you show what you're working on and what is not up to standard yet. It's important to add alternative texts for images. So people with visual impairment cannot see what's on the images, and if you have an alternative text, their screen readers can tell that. Of course, it's important also to offer various contact options for you, depending on user preferences. Forums on your website should be keyboard friendly and also provide error feedback. And you can also run a quick accessibility scan if you are up to European compliance yet. And if your website is accessible, it has a lot of positive impact. It can boost your website conversion by 15%, and it's, of course, great for your SEO. I will throw you some nice numbers now. There's been a research that says in the whole world, there's 1.85 million people with a disability, billion people with a disability. But they, of course, their friends, families, partners also count in this population. So in total, people with disabilities and their friends and family make up to 3.3 billion people. This is a huge population, and they calculated that they have a disposable income of $13 trillion. So we're talking huge numbers here. This is one of my pet peeves, one of most important things you can do in really a short amount of time is offer people different contact options. So often you are on a website and you have this contact form and you have to fill out your phone number, for example. There you go, it's obligatory. Why? I get nervous because this is a screenshot from my phone back in the days. For the duration of about a week, I got called 3 to 4 times a day by the same number. It's like, what do I do? My phone's ringing. And of course, I tried to call them back via the interpreting video service, but it happened to be an insurance company who wanted to sell me something. I'm like, guys, come on. So this would be great. A firm like this really caters to the needs of a diverse population of website visitors. They just offer different communication methods, phone, email, text, or what's often omitted is a box where people can add why they don't want to be called. For example, you could say, I'm deaf, please don't call me. Back in the days, the World Health Organization had a statement where they said that, disability is a personal health condition, but thankfully they changed their minds and they, gained some more insights where they say that a person with a disability is a person with different needs, and so the human interactions often don't match. So the focus is not on the person, but on the surroundings. One deaf colleague of mine has this nice quote. So you are the ones that can make my life harder, actually. I don't find my life hard, let's be clear about that, but now for some design thinking, I assume that this is a concept that's pretty familiar. You might be using it in your creative environment, how to solve a certain problem as a method, and how to tackle a creative problem. You can use design thinking for that, and that consists of 5 phases, 5 steps. Empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and then test. So this first term here, empathize, I'm not happy with that. Let me check my notes for a quick second. Yep. Empathizing is dangerous, actually. A lot of people find it scary or are afraid to go up to people and question them about their ideas and their lives, people with disabilities, for example. So they find it hard to come up to a deaf person and ask, what is it like to be deaf? And so as a solution, they try to envision what it is like to be deaf themselves. So, but they can't do that without getting the insights of a deaf person. So what they come up with might not at all be how I experience the world. And of course, empathy is important. You must be open to other people's experiences, but please don't pretend that you know what people's lives are like. And because it holds the danger of putting your own perspective into it too much. So it's important to learn from people who've had the experience of living with a disability, for example, for their whole lives, because they are the true experts, not you. And it's also important to ask the right questions and to question your own work. Like, what's in here that's me, and what's in there that's the other person. So that's important to keep in mind when you're designing stuff for somebody else. And what's my bias? And there are organizations that actually ask the people who they design for to come into their organization and into their teams, but that happens very seldom. And I prefer actually to design from the start with the target audience, so to say. So people with the disability are often subject to extractive allyship, which means that they are, they're asked to come in and share their knowledge and experiences without being properly remunerated. So it would be great to include them in the team from the start. I'd like to show you a video. Okay.
Hello. My name is Thomas, and this is Navid. We are inventors in the Lemelson MIT Student Prize Competition.
Access to communication is a basic fundamental human right, and every single person deserves to be a part of the global community. However, those who are deaf or mute communicate differently than everyone else. They primarily use sign language, while the rest of the world communicates verbally. This puts the deaf-mute community at a disadvantage, because like a foreigner in another country, they can't communicate like everybody else. What we decided to do is create gloves that translate sign language into text and speech. We have had extensive work with individuals in the disabled community, and have seen firsthand their daily struggles. We wanted to develop something that would help the deaf and mute better communicate with the rest of the world, without changing how they already interact with each other. By simply putting on a pair of gloves, those who utilize American Sign Language can now communicate with the rest of the world the same way they communicate with each other.
The gloves work by utilizing sensors on the hand and wrist to measure hand position and hand movement. The gloves then send this data to the computer via Bluetooth for processing. Once the computer recognizes and interprets the sign, it then outputs the corresponding word or phrase in text and speech. If you were to say, "Hello, I'm well, thank you," it would look something like this.
Hello. I'm well. Thank you.
And just like that, we've translated American Sign Language into spoken English instantly.
There are approximately 70 million deaf-mute people in the world who use sign language, but over 7 billion humans on the planet. Our device revolutionizes the way these two communities understand and interact with each other.
Currently, there is no commercial sign language translator on the market. With this invention, over 70 million people achieve a new level of independence. 70 million people gain access to a new job, and 70 million people secure an improved quality of life, all with the help of a pair of gloves. We believe that access and inclusiveness are catalysts for change.
These gloves were crafted with this principle in mind and seek to promote a more unified global community.
Amazing, right? No, please. I'm serious. No. I'm sorry, I'm being sarcastic. I mean, I don't wear gloves on stage. Do you see me wearing any gloves? Why am I not standing here with gloves on my hands? I mean, of course, they're cute little students, and they use not the best words. Like deaf-mute is not really 2024 anymore. And they also think that communication is a one-way street or one-way direction. I sign, and then it's translated into spoken English, but how do you communicate back to me? I mean, sign language is such a complex language. It makes use of facial expressions and body position and jokes. It's not just what happens in the 5 fingers. It's so much more than that. And it's really great that they think that with one glove they can cater to the needs of the whole deaf community in the whole world. I mean, this only works for American Sign Language so far. But it happens every other year. There are people coming up with sign language gloves. It's a recurring thing. I mean, right now there is no assistive technology that works well for sign language. There is none. And people start designing this based on their own bias and their own ideas. They use their own frameworks when designing gloves like this. I mean, I understand what's happening, but there's a danger in that. The community of people with disabilities are not incorporated into the process. So people are designing for them, but not with them. And this could also happen with AI. Everybody wants 3D avatars that are signing. I mean, nice, but I don't say it's impossible. Maybe in 10, 15, 20 years, sure, there must be something that's, that works with machine translation and sign language, but we're not there yet at all. And I would like to close my speech with this quote by James Charlton. It's really great to design. We have to design together in order to make true impact. Thank you all. Thank you.
Well, you really upstaged me there, which is good to see. Thank you so much. That's an absolute pleasure. We have some time for some questions. Now remember, go to Ring Central, be fair to the online people, and put your questions in the conversation. And luckily, we already have 2 questions there. So let's see how we get started. Question 1, which is also on my mind a little bit, what would your recommendations be when conducting an interview with a deaf person or designing for a deaf person?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Well, just ask them what they need. Do they want to use a sign language? Do they speak for themselves? I mean, there's so much variation there. Just ask them for their needs. And if they want to use their own language, then you can ask them, do they have preferred interpreters that they would like to work with? Because, you know, if you work regularly with the same interpreters, then that works well. But talk to them directly. to the deaf person themselves. People sometimes are a bit, they're not clear on who do they talk to. Do we talk to the interpreter? What do we do? So talk to them directly, yeah. Good question.
Yeah, good. I also know the long-lasting relationship between you and your interpreters. We had a good laugh about that yesterday. So it's great that you could also bring them along with you. Okay, second question. Can you tell us about any other legislation or guidelines that designers should be following to ensure accessibility for people with hearing impairments, etc.? Do you have some resources that we should use? Do you use some resources that you would recommend?
I'll have to look into it. I mean, there's the WCAG standard, of course. Just generally, that's a guideline that's, let me think. So every date means some things, but I'm not clear on that just right now. But there's a guideline based on people who have visual impairments and others. But if you...
Sorry, I'm telling people to ask some more questions.
Okay, sorry. So if you combine all those, I mean, okay, so I've lost my thread here a bit. If you look at the WCAG standards, it's okay. And you try to adhere to those as much as you can, then that's good. What you can also do is take it a step further and look at your design and your content as well. I mean, you don't have to make it perfect, but think about your great aunt, I don't know, I mean, who is 80 years old. Can they use this? Or, and as been said before, the EU, for the EU, the WCAG standard in essence is enough.
So there is this 2025 new legislation coming in from the European Union. How do you feel about this in terms of, not legislation, recommendations, guidelines? What is it again? Yeah.
I'm in two minds about that because apparently something is necessary. It has to be enforced. People don't do it, out of the kindness of their heart from themselves, I mean. So you have to enforce it. But if you, in your design process and in the ideation phase, if you put it in there, that's the best way to be inclusive, obviously. I mean, make the accessible part of your process. That would be the best way, but unfortunately that doesn't happen. But I think enforcing it will make greater things happen in the future. Yeah, I think it will have a positive impact.
Good, good. We have another question from John. Because sign language is different from region to region, does this make it extremely difficult in choosing the multimedia sign content you use in the website? For example, if my target market is multiple regions. Wait for... yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, so... this is going to be a little bit complex. Okay, so every country has their own sign language. I mean, there's Finnish sign language, the French sign language, and so on. But there is something that's called Finnish Sign Language in itself. It has its own grammar. And then there is also something that we call International Sign, which is not a language. But that's kind of like a combination of different signs from different countries. People sometimes compare it to Esperanto. It's not, but it's being used to serve as a broader audience. If you talk about the European Parliament, for example, they, use IS, International Sign, to reach a wider audience. So that could be an alternative option.
Cool. That's all the questions we have. Thank you so much. It's an absolute honor to have you on stage.
Welcome.
I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
This beautiful audience.
I will be here for the next days, today, tomorrow. If you have any questions, you want to talk to me, just please come up to me. I'd be happy to answer any question you might have.